If you got a bad state bill, which is sponsored by ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council, there's 23 states like that, you're going to have to start with your state bill. And you're going to have to read that thing really carefully just to see if you have any wiggle room. Some states really don't. Michigan, one of the worst bills I ever read. Terrible. Really hard in Michigan. Arizona, kind of similar. But
Really
there are a
bad
number
bill.
of states, 27 of them, that don't have a bad ALEC state bill. And so that would be New York and California, and I believe Washington's there, and a whole bunch of other states. So you're very much constrained more by your state bills than anything else when you have a bad ALEC state bill. In states without that, you got a lot more maneuverability, and you don't have to worry as much as you thought about some of these FCC orders. Looks like that 18-133 is not as bad as it was made out to be from the get-go, even though we didn't get a great decision on that, and we'll talk about that in about August. We actually can treat that a little bit as a series of preference statements by the FCC. It's not real law, and it's not self-enforcing. So it's unfortunately going to require a whole bunch of lawsuits in order to shape the laws around that. But right now, you can basically stand up to that order and say it really doesn't mean much, because it really doesn't. And the wireless industry tries to tell you it does, but the reality is it doesn't. Everything, you have to take this with a big old grain of salt, okay? I'm not here telling you anything tonight is going to absolutely work for you. We're, navigating in a whole sea of mud out there. It's about as clear as mud. And so all I'm saying is try whatever you can to throw stuff at the wall to see what sticks. That's the best thing to do, because nobody can predict the future accurately. Nobody knows exactly what's going to work in your local situation in your state. What I do find for a lot of people are they constrained by their own social conditioning. And they are there saying, oh, I'm a nice person and I want to be a nice person, and I want to ask everybody nicely what to do. You will get rolled. You're going to have to figure out within your group who's the stick and who's the carrot, and you're going to have to play them both, because if you don't have a stick, you're not getting anywhere. You got to get some leverage over these people somehow, some way. And so the problem is you're going to have to figure out who in your team is going to share what roles. Look, there's a little more risk when you play the stick. But if you're just there handing out carrot all day long, you're going to get rolled. And I watch it in community.
And I wondered if you could kind of balance the repercussions of 18 is that the FCC small cell order?
That's the ALEC agenda expressed in an FCC order. It was the Streamlined Small Cell Deployment Order 18-133 from September 2018. That's the bad one that really thought was terrible, but it's not as bad as
and I was wondering how that correlated to the good one in terms of the net neutrality, which kind of kicked jurisdiction down to the local level. How does that play into that? Those two different rulings.
Yes, it all plays very, very much, depending on who decides to present the information. You would be amazed if you watched the appeal we did last night for Boise. We had the strongest case. My God, we blew them out of the water. Hey, that planning commission, they just listened to that little city attorney, and they went 7-0 against us.
Oh, boy.
So we're going to have to go to the city council. It's just unbelievable how in the box these people are. And your city attorneys are the worst. They're just not very creative thinkers. And they can't get out of the box that they've been put into over the 15, 20 years that they've been doing their job. That's pretty much everybody.
How do you unmute yourself?
I believe, at least in my interface, down below, there's a mic and a camera, and you just click back on the mic.
No, I'm on a landline. I'm on a landline, Paul.
Oh, well, you just hold your breath.
That's not fair.
You could possibly *6 yourself, see if that works.
Okay.
I mean, you generally don't have much problem with landlines. It's the computer speakers that pick up all background noises and dogs and.
Okay, so don't unmute me. I'm the 845 number. Can you do that?
I'm gonna mute all. We'll just see how it goes.
Okay.
All right. So I will mute all. There we go. All right then. So I don't hear much background now, and I'm going to get started by sharing. All right. Here is scientistwiretech.com. Now look, I'm going to apologize a little bit for the length of this site. There's too much on this. I live in this site for the last 3 years. When I learn something good, I put it up here. But I want to at least give you a little quick tutorial on how to get the most out of this site, because a lot of people look there and they go, oh gosh, it's too much. I can't consume all that. And the answer is there's a couple of shortcuts that you can use a lot in order to not have to see everything, but find whatever's valuable for you. Okay, so the first thing to note is this great one called Blog and Search. I'm going to go there right now. So here I can put whatever I want in there. Okay, so I'm going to say 5G. A lot of people might not realize that the 5G is slower than the 4G right now. Then you put this up, and it gives you a nice search through all of my posts. It's not going out to Google; it's going just to my site. Okay, and there was a whole thing that happened in the FCC just a couple days ago about 5G open radio access networks, and here's the article about 5G being slower than 4G in nearly every city tested. It looks like they're topping out at 50 megabits per second. You know, they promised a gigabit per second, but they're only getting about 50 megabits. You're getting better than that on 4G. It'll cut it down, look across both posts and any of the pages that I have on my website. A page is evergreen content. It's not really, dated for this time. A post is kind of like reposting an article of some sort. So that's one shortcut. The other shortcut's in the Take Action menu, okay? And you can see when I put my mouse on that, we got this solve corruption thing, and we got this national security failure, and this follow Campanelli advice, and learn how to fight locally. These are some of the most valuable things. Then over in legislation, we got this one beautiful page I'm going to show you right now. And this is really important. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but it's worth spending some time on this page, okay? This is the 3 legs of a stool that you can use to communicate to any elected representative why they have the authority to do something here. And they've been told their hands are tied, and their hands are tied. Well, this is the way you can untie their hands, okay? If you just copy and pasted this one paragraph and stuck it in an email, it'll include these links, one back to this page, which is right here, one to the conference report, and one to the stated purpose of the 1996 Act. Okay, we'll go there in a second. But I start this with the Supreme Court ruling. This is important. This is the one that recognizes the 1996 Telecommunications Act conference report. It's Rancho Palos Verdes versus Abrams. And what it does is it comes down here and talks about this red text cooperative federalism. All right. And this is the important paragraph you could copy and paste, all day long too. It says, hey, we recognized in 2005 that Congress initially considered a single national solution. The FCC was going to run this thing top down, but Congress ultimately rejected that national approach and substituted a system of cooperative federalism. And they go ahead and put a link to it right there. All right. State and local authorities would remain free to make siting decisions. They would do so, however, subject to minimum federal standards, which we know is placement, construction, and modification of personalized service facilities. So this is what recognizes the conference report. This means it makes the conference report as good as law. That's a good thing, okay? The conclusion here is the regulation of the operations of WTFs, wireless telecommunications facilities, was never preempted from local zoning authority. This has not been fought back successfully by any city attorney yet. They all don't like it. They all think I'm wrong. And then I go back and ask for the citations that prove I'm wrong, and they can't come up with anything. They come up with some crazy Clarkson case up in the Second Circuit, but nothing that really holds water. So here's what happens when you compare these two versions. What are these? This was the House bill. That was the top-down bill from the fall of 1995. This was the Senate bill that they cobbled together over 3 or 4 months then to try to change the whole setup. And so this is the one we passed, the one on the right. And what you can do is look for the words operate and operation throughout. And I try to make it easy to find because I make it red, okay? Well, the whole point is understanding is they were trying to preempt all 4 things, you see? Placement, construction, modification, or operation of wireless facilities. But they ended up leaving operation out. Got it? And if you don't claim it at the federal level, then there you go. That's how it works. So then you go down here and you go, oh, well, this whole thing, I'm kind of familiar with this, is that a state or local government, here it is, where is it? Oh, environmental effects, all right? Even on the old bill, it was kind of the same idea. We got a policy here, and when you're dealing with placement, construction, modification, or operation of such facilities on the basis of environmental effects, well, that got translated over here to drop out operation. All right, what does that mean for this section? No state or local government may regulate placement, where am I going to put it? Construction, I'm going to build it. Modification, yeah, I'm going to upgrade it. of personal wireless service facilities, those are cell towers, on the basis of environmental effects. Very important word, write that down. Effects are not impacts. Effects are not concerns. Effects are effects. That's all there is to it. This is the plain language of the law. So environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions. It's kind of circular logic, right? Well, you have to understand, in February, they didn't even have a guideline yet. They didn't pick one. And they never intended for the guideline to actually hurt us. They thought the guideline was actually going to be protective, okay? And that was the original intent of this whole thing, was we don't want a bunch of NIMBY people to keep this thing from being built. We want the thing built, but we don't want to hurt anybody either, okay? So that is the intent of the law. And that is clearly seen when you go to the conference report. Here's the other thing to understand here, is that when you look up here, they talk about the limitations. All right, what are these limitations? Shall not discriminate among providers of functionally equivalent services. That's another one to write down. You make a lot of hay with functionally equivalent services. We'll talk about where that is. And they shall not prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of personal wireless services. So what this all comes down to is understanding what the definitions are. We have a definition in this bill right here for personal wireless service. We can't find a definition anywhere for functionally equivalent services in the bill. How odd is that? Well, until you do a little digging, all right? Let's go to the bottom of the bill and look at, or this portion of it, and look at these definitions. What is personal wireless services? It means commercial mobile services, unlicensed wireless services, and common carrier wireless exchange access services. Translating that, cell phone calls, Wi-Fi, and connecting to landlines. That's it. That's the whole personal wireless services. That's it. That's how they defined it. Hey, does that mean internet? No. Does that mean streaming video? No. Does that mean listening to music that's streaming to my? No. What does it mean? Making phone calls. Yeah, that's what it means. That's what the whole bill was written for. They never envisioned the kinds of services that they're trying to push on us today. They never went back and got a change to the law. All they have is this. That's what personal wireless services is, okay? Unlicensed wireless service is just stuff that they don't actually have to auction off, and so everybody can use it without paying a fee, all right? And that's Wi-Fi today, but they're gonna add to that, okay? And then the facilities are just things that allow you to do personal wireless service. But it's good that they defined what personal wireless services is, because that's all we're doing here is phone calls. So when you come back up here, you're now going to go to the conference report. That's the next best place to go, right there. I'm going to click on it. And we're going to see a couple of nice things here, okay? It's not very long. It's only like 2 pages here. And I put the original link to it right there, so you can get the regular PDF, all right? You don't have to read it off here. I just formatted it a little differently. But take a look at what they tell you right here. Here's your definition of functionally equivalent services right there. Cool. Well, this is as good as law, folks. This was recognized by the Supreme Court Justices of the United States. Great. What does it tell me? When utilizing the term functionally equivalent services, the conferees are referring, that's your elected representatives, are referring only to personal wireless services, meaning phone calls, as defined in this section that directly competes one against another. Ta-da! All it means is T-Mobile's phone calls versus Verizon's phone calls versus AT&T's phone calls. Doesn't mean anything about downloading a video or seeing the internet or anything else. That's all it means. Okay, cool. I understand what the intent of the law was. Hey, they say one other thing. We want to make it really clear for you, okay? When you talk about discriminating among providers, hey, we're not going to really be that hard about it. We're going to provide localities the flexibility to treat facilities that create different visual, aesthetic, or, wait for it, safety concerns differently to the extent permitted under generally applicable zoning requirements. That would be your local laws. Oh, cool. So if I want to pass a local law that takes the safety of my people in part of it. Can I do it? Well, yes, you can. That was the original intent of the act. Oh, if you're not clear about that, let's give you an example. For example, the conferees, your elected representatives, do not intend, there's your key word, intend, do not intend that if a state or local government grants a permit in a commercial district, it must also grant a permit for a 50-foot tower in a residential district. Hello? That's the law. Was it in the intent of the 1996 Telecommunications Act to put small cells in residential neighborhoods? No. How do we know? It says so right here. What is this? This is a conference report recognized by the Supreme Court justices. Cool. This is law, folks. You can use this right now. Hey, you know, what else does it say? It says shot clocks are pretty much BS. Let's take a look. Hey, decisions are to be rendered in a reasonable period of time, taking into account the nature and scope of each request. If a request for placement of a cell tower involves a zoning variance or a public hearing or a comment process, that would be a discretionary method, okay? The time period for rendering a decision will be the usual period under such circumstances. It is not the intent, ding, 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 keyword. It is not the intent of this provision to give preferential treatment to the wireless industry in the processing of requests or to subject the request to any but the generally applicable timeframes for zoning decisions. Look, folks, the FCC dreamed up shot clocks based on the 2012 Spectrum Act. It was a figment of their imagination. They are not consistent with the intent of the law. And so you may have a state shot clock like we have in California. We stupidly passed one in 2015, but those 60-day shot clocks, they're strictly illegal. You can actually challenge those in an instant. Okay, you don't have to go along with those things at all, in my opinion. Hey, I'm not an attorney, okay? I'm just telling you what I think, all right? And that's a good time for me to go to my disclaimer. I think I've got a disclaimer somewhere down right there. Let's go take a look at that. You're listening to my opinions today, right? I cannot give you any expert legal advice. I cannot give you any expert medical advice. I can only tell you I think this is pretty good information. Don't come after me. I can't tell you by using this information you're going to have any particular outcome or not. Just please understand. I'm just gathering good information and trying to share it with you. Hey, you know what? I got a little copyright notice down here, but guess what? I never enforce it. What can you do? Steal every piece of content off this site for free without attribution. No problem. Don't mention me by name. You don't even have to mention the website. You can use it for your own purpose. Use any image you want. Use any piece of text you want. This is why I put it up there. That's why there's no paywall. Everybody can access and use this information for their own good. That's the whole point of it, okay? So feel free, take it all, share it any way you wish, all right? I'm not earning any advertising revenue off of this. I'm not asking to do anything. I'm just trying to give of my time, and anybody who wants to donate, there's a donate button there, okay? So it's important for you to understand that the act itself and the conference report are very much in your favor, as are many FCC regulations. And they're very arcane and somewhat hard to get through, but maybe we'll go after that after I talk about a couple more things. Hey, for everybody who's paying attention, I'm going to come over to maybe a little controversial page right here. I'm going to see it right now. All I'm going to tell you is that in the last week, I put very valuable information here. I would strongly suggest you guys spend a little time on this, okay? And what you're going to learn is that we learned a couple of things. On August 20th, Mark Esper, our Secretary of Defense, not actually Defense, but Defense, I'll fix that. He came out and made a statement. You can listen to it. It's on a video right here. I got it in red right there. We know the Chinese and China and Russia are weaponizing space through the development of anti-satellite missiles, directed energy weapons, and more. Uh-oh, what are we seeing? Let's go to the bottom. Hey, this is what happened here in Monterey. There you go. There's your directed energy weapon coming from above, going right into the spire, making it worse. And it's not just affecting fires, it's affecting earthquakes. You'll learn all about that when you watch some of these videos. These are people who are paying attention, and they've been following earthquakes for over 10 years, and they have channels, and they talk about it. And they think it's so weird that the earthquakes and the fires are happening in the same places. We're under attack, folks. You have to understand what's going on. And it's not the first year we've been under attack. We had these same kinds of beams in 2017 in Santa Rosa. We got videos of them, and you can find them. just by looking at some of the links on this page. You should know about these things, okay? I'm not here talking anything about conspiracy theory or conspiracy analyst. I'm just reporting what our Department of Defense says and what people can see in actual feeds off of satellites. That's all I'm telling you. And we are in a bad place right now, and you should understand what that might mean for you, okay? So what you do with that information is up to you, but I thought it was necessary for me to at least communicate it to you, okay? So let's move on to another one here, Solve Corruption. This is an excellent group, and this is called Represent Us, and I'd recommend you learn a little bit about it. This is Jennifer Lawrence. She's part of the group, okay? We basically are living in a world of corruption, and it's really captured our federal government, and that is very clearly shown right here in this Wizards Behind the Curtains link. I'm not going to go there. It's actually a banned video. I strongly suggest you watch it. It's not on my site. It's on somebody else's site. I strongly suggest you watch that. You will understand maybe a little better why you get such little purchase from your local people. They probably know more about this than you do. And the answer is it's not good for us. And we're going to have to follow this kind of model in order to try to make some progress here. But we are fighting corruption every day here in the United States, and we're going to have to be better at it. All right, here's one that you may not know about. I would watch this video too. What are we doing? We got proof that wireless is selling a defective product and service, and it leads to a national security failure. Oh my goodness, is that going to help with you? That might. That's actually a pretty good point to bring out to people. Well, what do you learn? You learn that anybody can do an impersonation attack on any of these networks. This was a problem way back in 3G. They told us the lie, they fixed it in 4G. They didn't. And now that we're doing 5G, they're basing it on 4G. The problem is still there. It's in the user layer. It's in the hardware itself. This has nothing to do with Huawei. This is in our own equipment, the Ericsson equipment, the Verizon, the Galtronics, the Amphenol. It's all in there. And here's what it allows you to do. Hey, we have a nice rich person in the West Coast that's fighting a cell tower. We don't like this guy very much. Great. We're just going to impersonate him. That's right. We're going to get right in the middle of his transmissions coming off his phone, and we're going to be able to essentially deliver it anywhere we want, someplace he never intended. Oh, guess what? We can actually go ahead and change his text messages too, and his emails, and even his voice if we need to. We can set this guy up. We can set him up like he was conducting a drug deal. Yep, we can do that right now. So you have to understand, if you listen to this guy, he's just explaining it in about 10 minutes. You'll understand what the whole thing, there's a paper there, okay? So this whole thing that we're getting about, oh, Huawei is a problem and our security is a problem, blah, blah, blah. It's all packaged information to mislead you. In reality, we have a completely insecure system, and we're spending all this extra billions of dollars to take our cell tower count from 300,000 to 1 million with the same flaw in it. It's crazy stupid that we're allowing this to happen, but maybe this will be enough to talk somebody into doing a moratorium. I'd say it's worth a shot. That's something I found. All right, here's another one. Let's follow Campanelli advice. Anyone who hasn't watched this one, this to me is the #1 page on my website because Andrew Campanelli is the bomb. Andrew Campanelli is the best cell tower attorney in the United States. He's got 7,000 cases. He wins about 80% of them. He tells you in about 50 minutes everything you need to know. If you could get your local people to just sit down with you and watch this with you, I think you'd make a lot of progress. He's very smart. He knows what's going on, and he tells you that this whole thing is fraudulent. All of the applications are fraudulent. And guess what? He just went ahead and made an argument in Saugerties, which is in New York, and Verizon ran away because essentially he came out with all the things you can say about how to defeat cell towers. And he just laid it all out and he put it in a nice big memo with a bunch of exhibits. Go ahead, download them, read them, learn from them, okay? You'll also learn from this guy. This guy is Ian Oglesby from Seaside, California. He schooled Verizon. He conducted a perfect proceeding here. And he went through an appeal. He said no to 3 towers and basically sent Verizon packing. They didn't get a single one. And they got no lawsuit because he said no in the correct ways. You see, there's a way to say no and there's a way not to say no. And this is what your local planning commissions and your city council members don't know yet. That's why they have to listen to this to get a little basic training in how to say no. We're working real hard to try to make that happen, okay? Let me take one little detour here. I'm going to go to the San Francisco page and show you something to talk about a myth that you probably have heard. I actually will challenge many, oh, there it is, right there. I challenge many city attorneys when they say false things in meetings, and I write them emails and I force them to retract their statements. This is what she said, word for word. This is the intercalsa for the Davis, California City Council. The federal government has expressly stated that we, the city of Davis, cannot adopt regulations to mitigate the impact, ooh, that's a lazy word, folks, impact, of environmental impacts, oops, second time, or health impacts, third time, of telecommunications facilities, full stop. Well, she's pretty certain, isn't she? We are completely prohibited from taking health impacts, bad word again, into account in adopting our local regulations, and that has been the case since 1996. This is a completely false statement. Let me tell you why. When they passed that act in 1996, that was the only time, like the day after, that we actually had a single telecommunications act that applied uniformly across the country. A year later, there were a bunch of lawsuits, and they happened in each of the different circuits. There are 11 geographic circuits in the US. Every time you get a decision, then that contours the act for that geographic circuit a little bit. So today, after 24 years of this, we have a very different Telecommunications Act in the Ninth Circuit than they do in the Fourth Circuit or the Second Circuit or any other circuit. Everybody has their own decisions. Some circuits agree with each other, some do not. And so today we have 11 different versions of the Telecommunications Act. So clearly, this was not set up in 1996. It happened from some bad decision that happened in the Second Circuit, okay? So the other thing that's going on is she's really confusing these words. So she writes me back and she says, well, yeah, you caught me. All right, so you asked me for some legal citations. So I came up with one. I didn't find anything in the Ninth Circuit that worked. And so I'm going to pull this one out of my butt and I'm going to call it the Cellular Telco and Town of Oyster Bay from 1999. Cool, what does it say? You're going to have to watch these words carefully here. Watch this. The statute uses the term environmental effects. All right, that's a good word. To describe an impermissible basis for decision. Well, that's a true statement, okay? And we saw that already because we looked at it. All right, now they go off the reservation. Although one court has questioned whether environmental effects and health concerns, wait a minute, what happened? There's an effect being equal to a concern? No, you can't do that. What is going on here? Oh, well, even though this court thinks that we were wrong, we still believe that the terms are interchangeable and will use health concerns, to refer to the constituent testimony and the connection between RF emissions, cancer, and other health problems. Let's back this up. You hear Susan Clark talking all the time, say eradicate concerns from your language. This is why, okay? What is a concern? A concern is a projection of the future. It is something that might happen. It's a worry. It's something that I think is going to go bad. I don't know. I'm complaining about it. I'm worried about it. I am actually possibly irrational about it. That's all they do. As soon as I heard the word concern, bang, you're irrational. I don't have to deal with you. I only have to deal with actual evidence. Hey, what about effects? Is that actual evidence? Oh, it is. Okay, cool. Well, hey, way back in 1999, we didn't have a whole lot of this high level of cell tower stuff, so maybe not many people were that sick at that time. So at that point, maybe they were just concerns. But today, in 2020, oh my God, we got people dying and being injured all over the place. We don't have concerns. We've got evidence of effects. So if you're going to bring effects together, well, none of this applies, all right? And this is how thin it is. Nobody can talk about health. Nobody can do it. Nobody can, it's all BS. Of course you could. Now I'm going to give the caveat. This is the crown jewels for the wireless industry. They were so happy they bribed this judge to say this thing because they get to use this all over the country. And so this is their crown jewels. If you convince your town to make the argument that effects and concerns aren't the same, well, now you've put a target on your town's back and they will pull out the big guns and they will bleed you dry to protect the crown jewels. So even though it is legally sound to make the argument, it's legally unfashionable and it is unkind to your city to put them through that, because the wireless industry is not going to give up on that. They're going to fight that to the tooth and nail. They're going to keep that as much as they can. That's the important thing, okay? So I just wanted to point that out. It is perfectly fine for you to talk about anything you want. However, if you watch that Ian Oglesby video, you will realize the mayor's telling you, listen, don't talk about these health effects. It's not going to help us. All it's going to do is going to give Verizon the ability to upend the decision in court. Why don't you come forward with other arguments? And that way you can actually get things done and done better. Okay. All right. So that's another valuable one. Let's go to This Works. Not everybody has gone here yet. This also has some slides that we will go to in a second. This is a video that Mark Pollack, who's another attorney here in Santa Rosa, about 15 miles north of me, did some work on behalf of a wealthy person in LA to figure out the whole insurance angle and the whole angle of the entity who's doing the application. Recognize what's going on. Verizon wants to shield themselves from liability. So they're never putting their name on an application. So they send some poor little dope in there to fill out the application. That's the little front company that kind of builds the thing, okay? Well, that company is designed to go bankrupt, all right? Well, Verizon then just bamboozles the city into thinking that you're dealing with big Verizon, but they're very careful not to put their name on anything, and very careful to use a name that doesn't really get traced back to them. They got 5 or 6 different ways to talk about themselves. And they always say, oh, I'm a Cellco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless, or I'm a general liability this, or I'm an LLC that. And they do this all over the place. There's legal actions I can point to, and they refer to themselves with 5 or 6 different names on purpose to make sure that you cannot pierce the corporate veil. So now they sit there and wave the fact that maybe we have some insurance here. We'll do some self-insurance because I'm a big old rich company. But guess what? They didn't fill out the application. So now when it's time to come forward, who do you go for? The company that built the tower. What are they going to do? They're going to go bankrupt. Oh, well, who's left standing? The city. They're going to have to pay the bill. Did they ever get insurance? No, because you can't get insurance. Uh-oh. That's a full transfer of liability right to your city. That's really well explained by Mark Pollack right here, okay? And he does it in a series of slides. Let's go there right now. I won't go through all the slides. I'll just show you what's here. These are some HTML slides. You can get there just by clicking that link. This is on my other site. That's Mark, and he worked a lot with Harry on this whole idea. This is your biggest problem. This is your second and third story bedroom windows right there, okay? And they always give you some kind of reading down here at street level, but this is really what's going on. It's really a problem, okay? And so, we have this thing in Sacramento. This is in the record, okay? And we know for sure that this thing, which is about 50 feet away, went right into the second story bedroom. It was measured at 50,000 microwatts per square meter in the bedroom. That's an average. The peak was 460,000. That's a lot of radiation, folks. That's coming off a small cell, and it got these kids instantly sick. It took them about 6-8 weeks to figure out it was the tower. Then they had to get all these experts in. They had to shield the house, move the kids in the back room. I mean, this is in the record. These are health effects. These have medical diagnosis. This is real evidence. Here's another one, San Francisco. Look at this, 12 feet from a bedroom window. No NEPA review. So we went in there in November, said, don't turn it on. Didn't have NEPA review. Turned it on anyway. 3 months later, Cheryl Hogan here, she had a brain tumor pulled out of her head. For real. Well, she couldn't go back there. We're trying to get them to turn this damn thing off. They won't do it, okay? Here's in Santa Rosa, right next to it. It's about 25 feet from the house, okay? This is how the community thinks about this. Don't do this. This is terrible, all right? She lost 23% of her home value just because she had to get out of there. She was already sensitive. These are real effects. This is real evidence. This is not concerns, okay? So here's the analysis, and I can show you on a web page too, but essentially it's this. If you put a macro tower 2,500 feet away, and it's 200 feet in the air, by the time it gets to you, you're going to get enough microwave radiation to have 5 bars in your cell phone. 5 bars in your cell phone is very low, 0.002 microwatts per square meter. Okay, this is 50,000. Great. How much higher is that? 25 million times higher. Uh-oh. So what do you call these things? Small cells? I don't anymore. I call them 25 million times more powerful cell towers. That's what I call them, because that's what they are. You have to think about it in terms of power. This is what's going on in Scottsdale, and it's unfortunate. The judge that ruled in the FCC case that we heard on August 12th lives in Scottsdale. I gotta believe they pretty much just buzzed her house and got into her brain. She pretty much agreed with the wireless industry on that ruling. Safety, privacy, and property value hazards. You can learn more about this. We can go through it later, but I did want to get forward to this liability thing, okay? So, look, there are scientifically established health hazards. The insurance companies themselves call this a hazardous pollutant, and reinsurance doesn't work. So Lloyd's excludes any claims arising out of resulting from contributor by electromagnetic fields, electromagnetic radiation, electromagnetism, radio waves, or noise. It's seen as a toxic agent by all the companies. Hey, how long have they been doing this? Almost a decade. Okay, they did this a long time ago. Okay, you can make your town demand that we see the actual insurance policies, not just a little piece of paper that says there is insurance, because almost everybody has a pollution exclusion. It's going to be hard for them to find a policy without it, but guess what? If your town demands it, well, then they can't go forward. So this is actually very good strategy, okay? You can see a video here with Harry talking about it. There's not much in the lawsuit. There's a bunch of other links here. But what most people don't realize is how bad this guideline really is. So there's some more stuff going on here, but I'm going to go with this. You may or may not know much about electricity, but it's actually not that hard to think about. What are we talking about? Because if you can talk a little bit about electricity, you can actually shut down some arguments out there, okay? Current, that is essentially electrical energy moving through a wire or space, okay? That's measured in amperes or amps, okay? Think of it as like a hose that you have a little sprayer on the end and it's closed. So you open up the spigot at the house, you fill the hose, but it's not going anywhere because the end sprayer is not open yet, okay? When you're like that, you have potential, okay? That's the potential to move. Once you open up the sprayer, now we get the flow, and that's the current moving. So in terms of electricity, that would be amps. Volts are this potential that I'm going to move. Hey, watts, what are watts all about? Watts are the rate of energy transfer. Why the rate? I thought it was everything. Oh, no, it's just the rate. Oh, okay, well, what if I wanted the full amount? Oh, you have to go to joules. See, joules are watts times time. And that will give you the total energy transferred. Well, isn't that what we're worried about? Yeah, they game the system. They're only talking to you about the rate. There's your problem, all right? So when you take a look to studying poison, what do you normally look at? You look at the total dose of poison that you get. Well, not with the FCC. The FCC pulled a little trick on you a long time ago. And they said the equivalent of this. Hey, Pasca, tell me, how far did you drive? And Pasca tells me, hey, we drove 30 miles per hour. And I go, wait a minute. I didn't ask you how fast you drove. I asked you, how far did you go? Oh, 30 miles an hour times a half hour, I went 15 miles. Well, that's what you need to know. You need to know the time. And they don't put the time into the guideline at all. That's why this whole guideline is a trick. It's utter nonsense. Okay? Well, why did they do this? Well, when you read the paper that they initially wrote, you'll see they looked at specific absorption. Hey, that's the one that looks at all of it. That's the one that is based on joules and specific absorption rate. Oh, well, why did they pick rate? To hide the truth, to make a deadline, and to make money. This is just a greed thing, folks. This is a trick they pulled on you in 1996, and they're still trying to pull the same trick. It's just a trick. None of this makes any difference. Hey, is anybody paying an electric bill out there? Are you paying for watts? No, you're not. You're paying for watts times time. That's the amount of wattage you got times the time you used it. Kilowatt hours. All right, makes sense to me. Here's a little video you can watch while I try to explain this idea a little better. But this is the deal. This is what's going on. Hey, it's a lot of numbers. Just hang with me for a second, okay? The human cell is at a very low electrical level. How low? 50 millielectron volts. Whoa, that's 21 zeros and an 8. Ooh, that's not much of a watt at all, is it? No, God, all right. Well, we kind of think that if you're in the single digits of microwatts per square meter, we're okay. But look at this, it's so much lower. Well, what's the FCC guideline scale? Oh, 10 million of those guys. Okay, so what's the difference between this number, the guideline, and how we actually operate with our cells? We're at 22 orders of magnitude. That's 22 zeros away. That's sextillion, 10 sextillion, okay? This is just nuts. None of this makes any sense, okay? And it's not about heating. This is just something they made up. It's all in this paper. The link to the paper is right here. And this only looked at science through 1982, all right? This is what they did. You have to understand how bad this is. This is the basis for the guideline. Here it is, right here. Was it done looking at biology or your brain waves or anything? Nope, none of that. What do we look at? A behavioral disruption. What? Yeah, that's all we looked at. What did we do? We took Norwegian rats, squirrel monkeys, okay, rhesus monkeys, and we put a bunch of power flux density in there and really high SAR numbers. And it was both continuous wave and pulsed at these kinds of frequencies you're familiar with, 1300 megahertz, 2450, that's Wi-Fi, 5800 is Wi-Fi. And we loaded them up with a whole bunch of radiation and it was really high levels. And what did we observe? We observed a behavioral disruption. That's it. And then we took their temperature. Well, what was that behavioral disruption? Oh, well, we brain damaged them so thoroughly to the point where they could no longer seek or eat their food. That's what we did. Yeah, we pretty much maimed them. And then we took their temperature. There it is. That's your guideline. That's where it all comes from. Is that scientific? It is not. Is that a trick? It is. So what's the truth? Well, there's lots of disruption of biology happens on the way to heating. You know about it. You read the science. Your cell membranes leak, your blood-brain barrier leaks, the proteins vibrate, distort, and more. Everything's going bad, okay? Because they all made it simple to sell you a story about heating up your tissue based on the fact of not allowing them to get brain damaged. So now we said, oh, cool. We found out what brain damages animals. Now we'll cut it by 50 and say that's good to go. That's all they did. Anybody want to chime in?
Paul, yeah. About the insurance, this Extenet Cambridge in the Second Circuit claimed that this lead company had to give all the information about other companies that they're going to lease to. Wouldn't that impact what Pollock was saying? Because Pollock says, well, hey, we don't know what companies are coming on these tolls. What's going on? Wouldn't that case help that? Although it's only the Second Circuit, so I'm not sure if it goes with like the Fourth Circuit that I'm in.
Well, like I said, it's not even in a court of appeals yet. So it's really just a local district court. It's actually a decent decision. I would point people to it. It doesn't really mean anything in your circuit right now. But it's worth reading what their rationale is. And of course, you can't hide information. The big part about that case, and we can go there in a second, is that we had this little game going on. And so you had Extenet was the installer and AT&T was the carrier. And they were saying, oh, well, I can't actually get you any information that AT&T would give you because, that's proprietary information and they won't give that to me. And, Cambridge was going, what the hell? What are you talking about? This is going in the public rights of way. We need to know about that. And so they basically dragged it out. And they told them at the very end their applications remained incomplete and they denied them. And so it was kind of sandbagging the whole thing. And they just said no to all 5. And so now the judge basically agreed with Cambridge. You can't hide the information. And this happened in Boise. They said they approved stuff out in Boise where there was nobody even specified the antenna. There was nobody even look up the antenna specs. It's ridiculous, right? And this is the kind of crap they try to pull every day. And so essentially that's why Andrew Kempene tells you that 90% of the applications he sees are fraudulent. That's the truth of the matter. And your job is to basically just categorize the evidence and basically prove the fraud. And if you have anybody who's listening to you, well, then you can do something about it. You wrote something in, where do you find in the law the info about the monkeys and the brain damage? It's not in the law, it's in science. It was in I found this in a presentation given by Andrew Thatcher, who's one of these guys like Hammett and Edison that goes around and carries the water for the wireless industry. It just says, oh, if it's compliant, then it's going to be okay. That's the one thing you can say to anybody. Compliance with the FCC guideline does not ensure public safety. Does not. Could not. Never will. And your local people must provide public safety. Full stop. So we have a conflict in our laws right now.
Paul, could we get that study? And can I ask you another question?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. If there's any way to reference the monkey business, that'd be awesome. Could you please speak about how the ALEC states might be able to leverage The fact that we're in a national emergency and that FCC has provided for moratoria on non-essential things like cell towers being built?
Yeah, we can go over that. I'll go back and show a website on that one. That'll be fine. So I'll go back and cover that one too. So I got the Cambridge case and I got the national emergency deal. We got those two things. Anything else you guys want to cover? I mean, honestly, if we just went back to 2G, we'd be fine, right? Just cut all the internet wirelessly, say it's stupid, and make sure you manage them like iPods used to. Remember, who had an iPod? Put your hand up. Anybody have an iPod? Remember those things? iPods, had all the music on it? You did that by plugging into your computer, and you used a little USB cable to then put the music on your iPod so you could happily go around and listen to your music. Well, that's all we need to do again. Just do that. Do that with videos, do that with everything else, and stop depending on the internet out there in the real world. Just wait until you get into a internet cafe, Starbucks, or something else. That's really the answer here. If we could ever put the genie back in the bottle. There's all different quality in the meters that you might buy. And you believe that those meters are much more precise than they actually are. Those meters have a very difficult time accurately measuring the peaks of microwave radiation. In fact, some meters, even really expensive ones, just give up. They don't try to measure the peak. They only measure the average. Look, that's a problem. That way understates what's going on, okay? So it's really hard to actually make conclusions that are hard and fast from most of the instruments that you have out there, okay? And so most of them are plus or minus 3 dB or 6 dB. What does that mean? Well, when you're plus or minus, 3 dB, you're either double what you see or you're half of what you see. If you see plus or minus 6 dB, you're either 4 times what you see or you're 1/4 of what you see, all right? And so the bottom line is it's not a very reliable number that you get off of those things. Now you talk about the different units. Well, microwatts per centimeter squared, microwatts per meter squared. Hey, they even have milliwatts per centimeter squared, all right? Look, it's all political, all right? They chose milliwatts per centimeter squared to make a big number appear small. You want to go the other way. You want the number to appear with really the idea huge. That if you're somewhere between 1 and 10, that's pretty much where you want to be. And anything more than 10 is a problem, okay? You get to 1,000, it's hazard time. You don't want to be there. Hey, I see things that are 100,000 in people's houses. That's terrible, okay? I'd run for the hills. I'd get out of there. I'd move, okay? And so, at the end of the day, you have to, understand what these numbers mean. Now, volts per meter is another way to look at it. Volts are actually looking at the peaks better than microwatts per square meter. It's basically just a bunch of math that they do in the meter to kind of convert volts per meter into microwatts per square meter. And guess what? They're only measuring the electric field. They're not even dealing with the magnetic field in this. And here's the other mistake everybody makes. Oh, I've got a meter and I'm going to put it right on top of my cell phone or right next to my laptop and get some kind of reading. No, none of these meters can measure the near field. They can only measure the far field. And the far field happens after 2 to 3 wavelengths. So you do have to understand what you're doing. You have to know, what is my wavelength? How do I put some distance between myself and the antenna? And that's where I put my meter to at least get something I can see somewhat accurate. But these people who do these videos and they go, oh, I'm selling you services and an amulet and whatever it is, and I'm going to put this meter right there on the, they don't know what the hell they're doing, right? I mean, people just laugh. But this is the problem, is that we have a bunch of amateur people trying to inform everyone what's going on. And most people can barely figure this out. So look, my big pitch is to do this. Don't talk about microwave radiation to anybody at any time for any official capacity. No need to do it at all. What you really want to do is you want to cut effective radiated power. That is what all of your effort should be against. And Clarkson be damned. That is one decision. Screw that. I got the 1996 Telecommunications Act. I got the conference report. I got a lot going for me. I'm going to make that argument until I win, okay? I'm not going to be talked out of it because there is a case somewhere, someplace, okay? And I think this is the problem that a lot of attorneys have. Oh, I found a case. We can't actually make any more progress because I found a case. No way. Cases disagree all the time, okay? What was it? The Sprint v. San Diego came out and said, we made this decision at one point that effective prohibition was not the burden of the carrier to prove. It was something that the other side had to prove, and they reversed themselves. And they went back to saying, now you got to put it back onto the carrier. Well, that was great. They corrected themselves based on looking at the other decisions that are out there. It's a fluid thing. And so the point is, make your strongest arguments and go forward. It's just that health effects thing kind of really does put a target on your city's back. Can you get by without talking about health? Well, look, nothing wrong about talking about it, but you really should be bringing up findings that they can make that can easily stand up in court. That means it won't be built. Who's the master of that? Andrew Campanelli. Does he choose to make health arguments? Not often. He'll do it with an ADA claim. He's done that. He's won. He's not going to do it in generally, because he knows the judges don't want to deal with it. He wants to win. All right, he's pragmatic about it. That's different than being academically correct. Okay, he's trying to get a result. When you work in the effective radiated power, you got stuff to protect the quiet enjoyment of streets. Okay, and this is what went down with the FCC in the last day or so. We found a couple of FCC rules. Number one, it's section 47 CFR 324. I can show it to you, but the bottom line, it says, hey, when you're providing any kind of radio service, you have to use the minimum power for your desired communication. Yes, that's what we're talking about. The minimum power. That's good. That's in FCC rules. What else are they telling me? They're saying, hey, you know what? When we're out there looking at a particular frequency, and this ends up being in the 800 megahertz range, you can't exceed 500 watts of ERP, period, the end. What? These things are way over 500 watts ERP. What are you talking about? And so I'm having a conversation with them, trying to figure out how can I interpret this rule so I'm not wrong. But I mean, at the end of the day, we are just pumping way too much power in for what's needed. So the point is that you can catch them now in the calculation of effective radiated power. And you can actually say, hey, that's too much effective radiated power. That's ruining the quiet enjoyment of streets. Oh, there's your big idea. That's your big idea. Quiet enjoyment of streets. That's what your town has.
Permit application, the RF analysis, there's no parts list, and there's no gain for the antenna or output for a transmitter, and I can't calculate the ERP. Is that a good, powerful controversy point?
Beyond controversy, that's fraud.
Yeah, fraud. Okay, good, thanks.
Yeah, that's criminal fraud, in my opinion. Hey, we're going to put this really powerful thing in your neighborhood, but we're not going to tell you how much power. We're going to hide everything.
Yeah, also,
can you hear me?
Reliability, they say that, yeah, we did it.
Oh, you watch what happened in Boise last night, man. It was bad, really bad. We did well. We had really strong arguments. Man, this whole planning commission, there was major corruption going on there. You could tell they were spoken to. We were talking to the people in Newport Beach, and the very first thing that came out, they were going to make the repeal decision. And before we got there, the mayor recused himself because he's an attorney for Ericsson, who's a partner for AT&T. So we knew which way that was going to go. So we lost that one too. But we got stuff in the record, and they're going to go to a court and maybe still win there. Oh, look, we're swimming upstream. That's what we're doing for real.
Can you hear me?
I can. Who are you?
This is Ann, and this ERP and the quiet enjoyment of streets. Will you explain that? Because I don't see how, because I can't hear it. So will you explain that, please?
Sure. Let me explain it. And so look, all these ideas build on each other. What do we have? We have a bunch of nuisance laws, okay? And nuisance laws have been put into throughout pretty much all the United States. They started in Sweden. And so they're used to audible noise nuisance, right? It's all about people running the stereo too late. You can come out and shut them down. Well, guess what? Noise is part of electromagnetic power through the air. It's not just audible noise. And so this is why you take a look at how things are written and how you can make it go to your advantage. So we have a law in California. I don't know, Ann, what state are you? Idaho? Where are you?
I'm in Idaho, yeah.
Okay, so this may not apply to you, but at least in California, we have a decision that says, look, when you incommode the public with stuff you put in the public rights of way, it's not just about traveling from point A to point B, which is what the wires industry wants to say every single time. They want to restrict the definition. But the judges said, no, we're going to broaden that definition, and this is under your aesthetics control, all right? So we're going to call it 3 additional things. We're going to call it noise, negative health consequences, and safety concerns. But what I will tell you is they didn't say audible noise or sound. They didn't say that. They said noise. What's noise? Noise is electromagnetic power through the air that interferes with other things. And hey, the wireless industry really cares about noise. They talk about signal to noise ratio. We have to have enough power to get our signal out of the noise. Oh, so if there's so much noise going on, I have to be loud enough for someone to actually see my signal. Not loud enough to hear? Well, no, not necessarily. Just loud enough to get through. So don't be constrained by your idea of noise being only audible noise, because there are many things on the human body that can quote unquote react to this kind of noise. So your ears don't quite pick it up, but your eyes do. They get cataracts. And your testes do, and their sperm goes south. And your breasts do. They get cancerous. Okay, and your brain stuff happening on the fibrome, the sheath, the nerve sheaths, and everything else. I mean, it reacts very badly. So at the end of the day, we are getting pummeled by way too much noise. It's just not noise you can hear, right? So that's the problem, is that we're locked into these common definitions of things, when in reality, noise is a very technical definition. It has nothing to do with Title 47 CFR 22.193.
Okay, sorry, one more time. Title
47 CFR, Code of Federal Regulation, Part 22.193.
Okay, thank you.
At the end of the day, if you really want to understand this stuff, you're gonna have to read the manual. I'm sorry. It's the only way to do it. So many people sit there and go, oh, I'm not a math person. I can't understand this. I don't know what I'm talking about. No, you got to push through that. You're going to have to actually read it. You're going to actually have to do a little bit of math. It's not high-end engineering math. It's just third grade math. Okay. This is take a number, multiply it by another number, and then hold on to it because you're going to make a sum at the end. That's it. It's not hard. Okay. But you can't just check out because it has math involved. Just, just understand we're in a technical area and you're going to have to actually be somewhat fluent in it, okay? Otherwise, you'll never make any progress. If you read about what far field is, it's 2 to 3 wavelengths from the emitting antenna. So if you're dealing with 700 megahertz, that's a 17-inch wave. So 3 times 17 is how far away you should be. Okay, cool. And so now I'm going to go to unsafeatneg.com. Hey, you guys remember this old little book that they had from Ralph Nader, Unsafe at Any Speed? It was about the Corvair. Look at all these people we used to kill out here on the highways. And then on a per capita basis, it dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped. How did that work? Well, we actually got effective regulations. We got seatbelts, speed limits, and airbags. And we put them in. And we made that happen in the auto industry. That worked. We need the same thing for the wireless industry right now. Okay? We need local laws to rein in this wireless industry and take care of this fully captured agency and get the equivalent of speed limits, seatbelts, and airbags for wireless infrastructure. And what is that? That's capping effective radiated power. NSM is a way to talk about a moratorium. Okay, what do we know? We know that Donald Trump said these words: I, Donald Trump, President of the United States, by the authority vested in me, I hereby proclaim COVID-19 outbreak in the United States constitutes national emergency beginning on March 1. He said it. It's there. Did he undeclare it? He did not. Do we still have a national emergency? We do. All right. Can we take advantage of it? Possibly. Hey, here's the governor. Governor comes all out and says, you know what? We're just going to push it off to the counties. All you county people, tell us what's going on, you local public health officials, but go ahead and lock them down, but you're going to lock them down. All right. Here's Sonoma County telling us in 3 consecutive orders, okay? Hey, we're pretty much going to lock down. We're really scared of this thing, and so we're going to make sure you can't run your businesses and anything else, but we're going to make sure that we talk only about essential activities for essential businesses. There it is. What are those essential activities? How about this? Here it is. For the purpose of this order, you may leave your residence for any work necessary to the operations and maintenance of essential infrastructure. Ding! There it is. That's what an essential activity is. That's what essential infrastructure is. And, it has to deal with water, sewer, gas. And, hey, here's your only mention of telecommunications. Happened right here in the context of essential infrastructure with regards to its operations and maintenance, meaning, hey, if your cell tower breaks, come in and fix it. It doesn't mean, hey, it's time to build a new one. All right, so here it is. This does not cover the building of new wireless telecommunications facilities. We can and should join Simi Valley Eastern Connecticut, key New Hampshire, and take full advantage of this novel set of circumstances. Go ahead, pass a moratorium until the federal national emergency has been declared over. You see, you peg it to the federal. Hey, whenever they put that thing out, that's when it ends. But not a way to get a moratorium based on the emergency stuff. Now, when you go into 18-111, which was the no moratorium order, you will see there's a particular paragraph in there. And it says, well, you know, in matters of national emergency, of course this doesn't apply. So, you know, people just don't read these things. But, you know, the Washington says no moratorium. But you say, excuse me, it allows it during national emergencies. And we got one of those right now. We'll go over to ourtownourchoice.org.
While you're doing that, could you please tell us Ordinance M was from where or what?
Moratorium.
But from a legislative document?
It's from my brain.
Got it. That's even better.
Okay. All right. So what do we want to do here? Here's where we want to take a look at we want it. Well, let's look at the vertical horizontal power. Let's look at that for a second here. Here's your VHP. What could you possibly do? For any so-called small wireless telecommunications facilities that are installed in the public rights of way, attached to any building, or have antennas installed at a height that's lower than 100 feet off the ground, well, now you've fallen into our little regulation category. And what we're going to tell you is you can only put antennas, radios, and other supporting equipment that have no chance of exceeding a total of 0.1 watt of effective radiated power from the face of the antenna for all frequencies, wavelengths capable of being transmitted from the antenna. There you go. Cap it. Put that in. That's a very short thing. All right, that'll save you. That'll make it about the size of a Wi-Fi router. That'll make it a much smaller thing, okay? But this is the best one right here, okay? This is the we want it. Anybody can sign up for this. This can happen state, it can happen local, okay? It is the written evidence wireless antenna need test in telecommunications ordinance. That is an acronym that says we want it. And what does it say? It's going to require a comprehensive wireless signal strength test to be conducted every 6 months by an independent RF engineer who will log second by second the signal strength in dBm of every carrier-specific licensed and unlicensed wireless frequency and band that's being transmitted to the streets of every local authority. And the full data file for each of these things will be stuck in the public record for anyone to view it. That's the applicant, that's us, it's the planning people. We don't have to argue over what does the data say. It's all set up by a third-party person. And now we have what we need to solve the digital divide. So then we can make a decision, number one, do we need this antenna or not? That's the point, okay? And so if we don't, well then we can't do it, period, the end. And here's how you pay for it. What you want to do is you want to take a look at all of the antenna operators currently operating in your town because they're currently polluting your town. So you inventory what are the antenna specs, and then you add it all up and you make your city laser focus on the fact that you have 3.7 million watts of effective radiated power capability of pollution in your town every single second of every single day. Now they may think twice about adding an extra 50,000 of them, okay? So it's all about trying to say, let's do a market share analysis and say, of our 3.7 million watts, what percentage is Verizon? 62%. You pay 62% of the cost of the test. Hey, AT&T, how much are you polluting our town? Oh, 31%. Great, you're paying 31% of the bill. Look, the bill's not that high. The bill's going to cost you $20,000 a pop, something like that. So it's chump change. But the point is you focus everybody on thinking about the total effective radiated power. None of that has to do with microwave radiation. That's my whole point. Get them talking about power, okay? Here's what signal strength's all about. See this, 4G LTE? If I got minus 90 dBm, I'm good to go. Okay, I got excellent coverage. That's really the whole thing. Oh, God, really? Yep, here you go. Here's your biologically based guidelines, right? We've learned about these. Anything in 1 to 10 is kind of the slight hazard. Something that's up there in the 1,000 range is a big problem, okay? And there are a lot of people who are in this all the time, okay? Explains all the units here, but here's this little table. This will let you know. Here's 5 bars on a cell phone right there, number 1, okay? This is how much microwatts per square meter is. Whoa, that's 3 orders of magnitude lower than 1 to 10. That's right. That's all you need for 5 bars on a cell phone. It's almost nothing. That's the whole point. So if you just had that coming off the small cell in front of your house, you'd be okay. And that would happen if you cut it down to the size of a Wi-Fi router. That's really the point. Hey, when you get up into these levels, where I see a lot of people having them, okay, look what goes on. Leukemia, headaches, dizziness, impaired motor functions, all this bad stuff goes on. And eventually cancer. But cancer is not the big thing. It's all the neurological problems that happen right away, okay? And so you can download this whole page if you want, but here's the big table that helps you understand this better. What is dBm? It's just a unit they use for radio. It's no big deal. It's just described right here. It is a fraction that sets 0 to be 1/1000th of a watt. That's it. That's the whole definition. Big deal. We set up an arbitrary scale. We're going to assign 0 to mean 1/1000th of a watt. All right. Well, why do we do this? We do this so we can talk about large swings in power using normal sounding numbers. Okay. Well, here's 0 dBm up here. That's about 580,000 microwatts per square meter. Would anybody want to hang with that? I wouldn't. If you're at 30 dBm, you're going to be at the microwave radiation guideline, okay? The FCC guideline, all right? Then you come down to what is 5 bars on a cell phone. Oh, it's all the way down here, minus 85 dBm. Whoa, that's kind of like what we saw earlier, minus 90 dBm. There's your 0.002 microwatts per square meter. That's 5 bars on a cell phone. Hey, if we hung here in the land of coverage, we're going to be okay. So when you go from minus 85 down to minus 95, you're 1/10 lower. And if I go down another 10 to minus 105, I'm not, I'm 20 away, I'm 100 away. You see, I'm 1/100th lower. That's how these things work. They're logarithmic. And if I go down to minus 115, I'm 1/1000th lower. Well, guess what? You can still make phone calls down here, okay? So at the end of the day, with very little power, you can still make phone calls. And that is the test. Can you or can you not make a phone call? All right. Hey, it's going to be crappy for video. I get that. All right. But that's just a value choice. Does your town need streaming video? My town doesn't. We're not going to provide it very well. We're cutting it down. Okay. So when you go up the other way, then it's 10 times higher, 100 times higher, 1,000 times higher, okay? What's really going on? When you see these little charts that they put out, they kind of stop doing it once they get to minus 75 dBm. They say minus 75 dBm or higher. Well, they don't tell you that next to your house, you're going to be here at minus 10 dBm at 58,000 microwatts per square meter. That's disaster, folks, okay? But they're trying to sell it to you like butterflies and magic. It's not, all right? But its problem is that we just don't have any decent guidelines. That's kind of where it goes. So that's all on the We Want It page. Let's see if there's anything else in here. In NEPA strategies, I have this now on 2 websites. This one's a little easier to read. You will see Erica Rosenberg from the FCC kind of talking about things as of October 2018. We mentioned earlier she didn't do her review in 2019, okay, because they lost that court case, all right? But she tells us every single cell tower application, whether it's a small cell or otherwise, must go through NEPA review. And so this is her, it came right off a recording from her with Steve Romine, okay? So I have it right here. You can read every word that she says. And Steve's interesting. He just says, so really it's up to the people to keep an eye on these things and see if they actually in fact do meet the NEPA review standards. Erica agrees, yes. And then she says, she offers this. Hey, there's another thing you raised that we actually haven't addressed it yet. Yet is the operative word. It's the one about the facilities that got installed without NEPA review. We just haven't addressed this yet. I'm on her every day. What are you going to do about this? Because we got a lot of those out there. So you, the FCC, haven't figured out what you're going to do in that case. Yes, that's true. We haven't figured it out yet. Well, that was February. And so now we're asking what the heck's going on today, okay? Well, we've got some rules that tell you exactly when you have to do one. Here's a rule. This actually will cover a whole bunch of small cells. If you get a small cell that has an effective radiated power of more than 1,000 watts, and the lower edge of the antenna is less than 10 meters, that's 32 feet, 8 inches off the ground, you fall into a rule category where you must do an environmental assessment. No debate. Just has to happen. Okay, they never expected this rule to catch up to them in the small cell territory, but it did once they lost that court decision in August of 2019. So we take full advantage of it. We got a lot of complaints in the FCC right now, and so we're moving through those. Okay. All right, so there's more stuff in here, but at the end of the day, there's lots to read about NEPA strategies, but it tells you exactly how to make a claim, all right? And so all you want to do is you want to say, hey, there's a problem, and there's controversy within the community, and we have a bunch of people that are testifying, here's the evidence of that, and here's why it's bad, and you give them a whole bunch of evidence. I describe a lot of this in the videos that I've already done, so I don't want to go over it again, okay? Let's see if there's another valuable page on here. Limitations of the FCC. This is a good one, okay? This is what Professor Trevor Marshall wrote to the FCC on June 17th of this year, okay? And he makes a very simple point, okay? What are we doing? Why aren't we just having enough power to get the job done? What are you doing with all this extra power? None of this makes sense. At the end of the day, your engineers aren't doctors. Doctors are telling you it's a problem. You're making all kinds of mistakes here. And so at the end of the day, we caught you in all your mistakes. Why don't you just stop doing this? And rather than asking how much power is it safe to radiate from a macro base station, ask how much power is needed to get the job done. That's it. And you're going to realize that when you really look at this stuff, they're capped by the power anyway, meaning it's only, the max you can ever do to address your phone is 5 watts, because that's the max your phone can do. So if you put anything out more than what your phone can do, it's completely wasted. It's not for the communication now anymore. It's for something else. What's that something else? None of it's good. You know, I don't need to pontificate with you on what it is. We know what it does to us. None of it's good, okay? So it's 23 dB more signal than necessary to get the job done. That's just a lot, okay? So he goes on and explains the whole thing here, okay? Here's another really good page, maybe a little hard to see. That's just the wireless signal strength in dBm. Hey, you want to see what's going on in your community? Well, you get to go use this great free tool right here. What is this? Oh my God, I got the whole United States. I can actually go into any particular community and zoom all the way in and take a look at what's there. And then I can actually choose by carrier what is the brand and the band and see if in fact it's in my area or not, okay? So here we are, Bakersfield, California. I don't live there, but hey, is there any 600 megahertz there? Let's take a look. And we'll find out that in this case, and this is a little slow. Oh, it's got color, of course. Band A, 600 megahertz, is been licensed to be broadcast into Bakersfield. Are they actually doing it or not? We don't know, but you know that they have a license for it, okay? And you can then choose which carrier you want to deal with, okay? Let's only look at Verizon's. Okay, let's see Verizon's 700 megahertz band B, okay, and see what it does. If we get a color, they're there. If we don't get a color, they're not. So not B there, maybe C is there, and so forth. Oh, yep, a lot of C there, and that tells you specifically what all the frequencies are. This is guys scraping data right out of the FCC database. This is a great thing, okay? And you can get some really good information about what are the things that could be broadcast in your area, all right? So it's a good thing to know. All right, so we're going back now to ourtownourchoice.org to see if there's anything else to show you guys. And I think I do want to show you this one. This is a great page. We have a state representative coming out saying the right things, but she introduces a bill that's going to fix things in Illinois, but the bill is actually not very good yet. We're working with her to make it better. But she says, I take the health and well-being of our residents very seriously. I take the values of our properties and our homes very seriously, and our residents must have a say in what's actually happening in their neighborhoods. We agree. And so we're working with her to try to make her bill better, all right? But what you're going to realize is when you come down here, you're going to see some comparisons. Here's the problems with small cells, okay? This is the numbers I showed you earlier, but here's a page where you can actually find it, take a screen grab, put this in an email anywhere, okay? This is based on real measurements on a second-story bedroom, 50,000 radiation units. What do you get on 5 bars on a cell phone? 0.002. That's what you would get from a macro cell that's 2,500 feet away and 200 feet in the air. But when you're 35 feet off the ground and 60 feet in the air, this is what happens in your second-story bedroom unit. Holy crap, that's way too much. That's 25 million times more powerful than what is needed for 5 bars on a cell phone. That's nuts. Of course it's nuts. All right. So these are the same pictures I showed you earlier. Okay.
Would you mind repeating the heading that you got that from? How did you find that on the page?
Sure. Under solutions, it is local control over 4G, 5G infrastructure. You get a bunch of FCC proceedings here. You guys are aware of OTARD? That's when they're trying to put cell towers on roofs of homes. That's a bad deal.
What was that?
OTARD, OTARD.
Oh, okay,
It's
right.
for over-the-air reception device. But now they're broadening the definition. So that antenna is no longer just a reception device. This was for dish TV and direct TV. Okay, but now they've made it so they can put a little small cell antenna up there instead, and it'd be your neighbor that can do it. They can earn $1,000 a month or something, and they'll just pollute your neighborhood because they, some neighborhoods don't have poles that are easy to build on. And the first thing I'll do is type in OTARD right here in blog and search and see what comes up. Yep, there's your FCC OTARD rule reach. We'll take a look at that page in a second. And beware of OTARD, there's another one. And then we talk about that Woodstock. All right, good enough. We'll go to those two. And let's see what we got. That's just a video that came out, but I think I have the rule here. Yeah, it's in here, right here. You'll see the docket right there. Okay. So if you go to this page, which says, hey, scientistforhightech.com/OTARD. All right, let's go to another great page on my website. And this one was a little bit of a marketing effort on my part, so I don't do them often, but once in a while I reach in and call vertical horizontal power. Vertical horizontal power. If you haven't regulated all three, your town has achieved nothing. Hey, there's a new sheriff in town. It's a friendly $5 fuse. We have to understand vertical is the number of feet off the ground, horizontal, the number of feet away, and the maximum effective radiated power in watts. It's just third grade math. We've done this already. Maximum input power times antenna gain is the maximum effective radiated power capability of the antenna. Let's use some real numbers. 150 watts input times 10 on the antenna gain would give you 1,500 watts of ERP. What else could you do? 0.02 watts of input times 5 for the antenna gain to get 0.1 watt of ERP. Well, that's working. That would work because this would solve our problem. What is that? That's a Wi-Fi router. What is this? We see these as high as 50,000. This is a cell tower. Which one do you want next to your house? You want this one next to your house, okay? So here's where you're looking at an antenna that's going here, right? It's got a certain kind of a link to the actual antenna. And I will go ahead and click on it. Maybe we'll see the PDF of it in a second. But this is what you can pull right off the PDF, and I made the numbers bigger. All right, this antenna does these range of frequencies, right? 698 to 806, and 1710 to 1880, 1920 to 2180. Each of them has a certain amount of power times antenna gain. Multiply those two numbers together, you get the total, and then you add up the total. There you go. That's the capability of the antenna. That's the important part. See, they're going to come and tell you that, oh, our RF engineer, we told them we're going to run this with a really weak amplifier. So, hey, we're not even going to put 13,000 on the page. We're going to say it's going to do something like 700. Just please approve my antenna because it's only 700. Well, you have no control over how hot they run the radio. You have no control over whether they swap that radio out for a bigger radio. What you care about is what can the antenna do? And if the antenna can do this many watts, take it away. Bring back a smaller antenna. That's the point. Because your city can police the quiet enjoyment of streets. That's right. This is the same thing I showed you earlier. Okay, for any cell tower that's in these particular places, we want to cap the power. All right, that would do it. That would solve your problem. This is what you want. You want a Wi-Fi router. See this? This is a 4-inch antenna. This is a 1/2 inch in diameter. That will work. You plug that thing in, that'll go down the block 1/2 mile. It'll give you 5 bars on the cell phone. Everybody can make a call. How do we know? Hey, we got all kinds of things going here. Here's a rule. The field strength of any emission within band here shall not exceed 100 microvolts per meter. Oh, that's 0.1 watt right there. How about that? Here's another one. Data transceiver, maximum output power, 0.1 watt. Yeah, there you go. If this is what happens for me putting a Wi-Fi router in my house, and I'm, whatever it is, 50 to 100 feet from my neighbor, that's the reason I have to have such low power. Well, that pole is 50 to 100 feet of me. I need that pole in my neighborhood to be as good a neighbor as you expect me to be. There you go. That's what we need. Okay? So that's what vertical horizontal power is all about. Now, the good news is if your city decides to set these kind of power limits, they can do one more thing. They can invoke a police power that has not been regulated by the FCC. That's a police power. What are you going to do? Fine them, big time. You blew the fuse? Hey, it's in our box. We control it. We'll go out and put another one in, but we're going to take a nice big fat fee from you before we do it and warn you, you can only do this twice more before you lose your permit. Okay? Call that the 3 strikes and you're out program. All right? That's a great thing. Now you're making money. So what should the fee be? Oh, I know. How about $25,000? There you go. Now we got some intention. So if you blow the fuse, come on in, fill out a form. Yeah, we'll get to you in a couple of weeks. We'll put that in. Oh, I need it right away. Well, I'm sorry. These are just ancillary for entertainment anyway. There's nothing important about these. We'll get there in a couple of weeks. But when you do, you got to give me that $25,000 check right now. Okay? We'll get out there. Then they go 2 months later, blow it again. Whoop, I'm sorry. What happened? You blew it a second time? All right, this one's going to cost you $50,000. Okay, but we'll go out and do it, but don't do it again. You blow it a third time, well, that's $100,000, and now you got to come up and pick up your equipment. And if you don't, well, we'll just go ahead and remove it and sell it in the open market, okay? But you lost your permit because you have 3 strikes and you're out. Well, that's a good way to make money. That was not regulated by the FCC. They were not creative enough to do it. Hey, could your city be creative enough to make money off of the wires industry that, I don't know, what are they, $500 billion a year industry? Do you think they can make a little money off them? I think they could. You just have to get out of the box and not keep thinking that your hands are tied. Why don't you go get some money? That would be a good thing for a city to do. All right, so that's technical time. I think I'm out. I think that's probably enough time. What do you think?